In the vast wilderness of Tanzania's renowned Serengeti National Reserve, where the endless golden grasslands stretch toward the horizon and ancient wildlife traditions continue to unfold beneath the African sun, a young lion cub of approximately 6 months was about to embark on what should have been a significant milestone in its development as a future apex predator. This particular morning marked the cub's first opportunity to accompany its pride on a hunting expedition, an experience that would normally serve as crucial education in the skills and behaviors necessary for survival in one of the world's most challenging natural environments. However, the young cub's inexperience and lack of understanding regarding the complex protocols that governed pride hunting behavior would soon lead to consequences that no one could have anticipated. Its unsteady gait and natural tendency to become distracted by the countless sights, sounds, and scents of the savannah gradually caused it to lag behind the more experienced members of its family, who were focused entirely on the serious business of locating and pursuing prey across the challenging terrain. As the afternoon shadows began to lengthen and the golden light of the African sun started to fade into the deeper hues of approaching evening, the young cub suddenly realized with growing panic that the familiar sounds and scents of its pride had disappeared entirely, leaving it alone in an environment that had suddenly transformed from a playground into a vast and threatening wilderness. The dense vegetation that surrounded it seemed to close in like walls, obscuring its vision and muffling the distant calls that might have guided it back to safety and the protective presence of its family. The cub's initial response to this terrifying discovery was to emit soft, plaintive calls that conveyed both its confusion and its desperate hope that someone from its pride would hear and respond to its distress. However, as minutes turned to hours and no answering roars reached its ears, the young lion began to understand the full magnitude of its predicament and started a frantic search along the forest edges, following any scent trail that might lead it back to familiar territory and the security of its mother's protection. The first night spent alone in the wilderness was a nightmare of fear and uncertainty for the young cub, whose previous experience had never prepared it for the sounds and sensations of the Serengeti after dark. Every rustle in the vegetation, every distant call from other animals, and every unfamiliar scent carried the potential threat of danger, keeping the cub in a constant state of high alert that prevented any meaningful rest or recovery from the exhausting day of searching. As dawn broke over the savannah and revealed the full extent of its isolation, the cub began a pattern of behavior that would define its struggle for survival over the following days. During the daylight hours, it sought shelter in abandoned structures near human settlements, peering through cracks and openings with eyes that reflected both wariness and the growing desperation of hunger that gnawed constantly at its empty stomach. When darkness fell and the relative safety of night provided cover for movement, the young lion ventured into the outskirts of human habitation, driven by instincts that told it to search for any source of nourishment that might sustain its failing strength. The garbage areas around small villages became the focus of these nocturnal expeditions, though the unfamiliar smells of human waste, plastic materials, and metal containers offered little that could satisfy the dietary needs of a young carnivore. The few scraps of organic matter that the cub managed to locate were insufficient to provide the protein and nutrients necessary for maintaining its health, while the only source of water came from rain puddles that formed temporarily after the brief but intense storms that occasionally swept across the landscape. As days passed without adequate nutrition, the cub's condition began to deteriorate rapidly, its once lustrous coat becoming dull and matted while its body weight dropped to dangerous levels. The physical changes were accompanied by behavioral modifications that reflected the cub's growing weakness and despair. Its movements became increasingly unsteady and labored, while its breathing grew rapid and shallow, as its body struggled to maintain basic physiological functions on the minimal resources available. The bright intelligence that had once sparkled in its golden eyes gradually dimmed as exhaustion and malnutrition took their cumulative toll on its young system. Each night brought new fears as the sounds of other predators echoed across the darkness, reminding the isolated cub of its vulnerability and the countless dangers that surrounded it in this unforgiving environment. The distant lights of human settlements provided a tantalizing suggestion of potential safety, but the cub's instinctive wariness of human contact prevented it from seeking direct help from the very beings who might have been able to provide assistance. By the 9th night of its solitary struggle, the young lion had reached the absolute limits of its endurance. Its body, once sturdy and muscular despite its youth, had been reduced to little more than skin stretched over prominent bones, while its sunken belly testified to the extended period of starvation that had brought it to the very brink of death. The cub's collapse beside a dusty road leading to a nearby village marked what appeared to be the final chapter in its brief and tragic existence. The discovery of the motionless cub by local villagers the following morning created a scene of mixed shock and compassion, as these individuals, many of whom had lived their entire lives in close proximity to dangerous wildlife, found themselves confronted by a creature that represented threat in theory, but evoked only pity in its current helpless condition. The cub's feeble attempts at defensive behavior, including weak growls and the display of small fangs, served only to emphasize its pathetic state rather than inspire fear in the humans who had found it. The arrival of a Serengeti National Reserve rescue team, led by Jacob Mwangi, a veteran ranger whose decades of experience had involved countless wildlife emergencies, marked the beginning of what would prove to be a remarkable recovery story. Jacob's trained eye immediately assessed the severity of the cub's condition, while recognizing the urgent need for immediate medical intervention if there was to be any hope of saving this young life that hung by the most tenuous of threads. The transport to the reserve's medical facility was conducted with extreme care, as the cub's weakened state made it vulnerable to additional stress that could easily prove fatal. Throughout the journey, Jacob monitored the young lion's vital signs, while preparing mentally for the intensive care regimen that would be necessary if the animal was to have any realistic chance of survival. Upon arrival at the rescue center, veterinary staff immediately began the complex process of stabilizing the cub's condition through the administration of intravenous fluids, nutritional supplements, and carefully measured doses of glucose solution designed to provide immediate energy to its failing systems. The medical team worked around the clock during those first critical days, monitoring every aspect of the cub's recovery while adjusting treatment protocols based on its response to various interventions. The gradual improvement in the cub's condition over the following weeks represented a triumph of dedicated medical care combined with the remarkable resilience that characterized young lions when given appropriate support. As its strength returned and its coat began to regain its natural luster, the cub's personality also began to emerge, revealing the intelligence and spirit that had been temporarily suppressed by its ordeal. Jacob took personal responsibility for overseeing the cub's rehabilitation, spending countless hours working to rebuild not only its physical strength, but also the hunting instincts and survival skills that would be essential for its eventual return to the wild. The training program involved simulated hunting exercises using artificial prey that helped develop the cub's coordination, timing, and predatory behaviors while ensuring that it maintained its natural wariness of humans. As months passed and the young lion grew stronger and more confident, the question of its ultimate fate became increasingly urgent. The goal had always been to return the cub to its natural habitat and hopefully reunite it with its original pride. But the success of such an endeavor would depend entirely on the complex social dynamics that governed lion behavior and the willingness of adult lions to accept a young animal that had been absent from their group for an extended period. The first attempt at reintroduction involved transporting the cub to an area where one of the reserve's major lion prides was known to spend time, but the reunion proved unsuccessful as the adult lions showed no recognition of the young animal and displayed the territorial behavior that typically characterized their response to unfamiliar individuals. The cub's obvious disappointment and confusion at this rejection was heartbreaking to witness, as it had clearly hoped to find its family among these lions. Refusing to abandon hope, Jacob and his team decided to attempt a second reintroduction with a different pride located in another section of the reserve, more than 50 kilometers from their first attempt. The journey to this location was filled with tension, as everyone involved understood that this represented perhaps the last realistic opportunity to achieve the reunion that would allow the cub to resume its natural life among its own species. The moment when the transport cage was opened near the second pride proved to be one of the most emotionally charged scenes that any of the rescue team had ever witnessed. The young lion immediately displayed obvious excitement and recognition as it approached a particular lioness, whose response indicated that this was indeed the cub's biological mother. The reunion between mother and offspring was marked by the types of affectionate behaviors and vocalizations that confirmed their familial relationship and indicated the successful conclusion of an extraordinary rescue operation. As Jacob and his colleagues prepared to depart from the reunion site, they carried with them the satisfaction of knowing that their efforts had not only saved a young life, but had also contributed to maintaining the complex social structures that were essential for the long-term survival of lion populations in the Serengeti. The sight of the cub playing happily beside its mother, while being welcomed back into the protective embrace of its pride, represented the ultimate validation of the conservation work that defined their professional lives. The story of this remarkable rescue and reunion would serve as inspiration for future wildlife management efforts, while demonstrating the crucial importance of maintaining adequate resources and expertise for addressing the countless emergencies that arose when human activity intersected with the needs of wild animals. Most importantly, it reinforced the fundamental truth that individual lives matter within the broader context of species conservation, and that the dedication of committed professionals could make the difference between tragedy and triumph in the ongoing effort to protect Africa's magnificent wildlife heritage.